Welcome to Steel and Glory, where we discuss the lively world of historical fencing and everything else related to the sword arts around the globe. Today, it is my pleasure to spend time with an old school Western martial arts fighter whose experience with weapons has more hours racked up than my total time as a man. And I have some gray hairs coming in. He has successfully navigated the demands as a sword instructor and is here to share some insights. He is head instructor at the Academy of European Swordsmanship. In addition, Haidner has become a HEMA Arms Dealer, serving Canada's itch for steel and personal protection. Ladies, gentlemen, I give you the fantastic Johanus Haidner. Welcome to the show, buddy.
Thanks. Good morning.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about yourself.
Where to start? You want to know how I got into martial arts? Was kind of an accident.
Okay.
When I was a teenager, I had a very, very, very bad temper. And I was really small, so I got picked on a lot. And there was an incident when I was 13 where a couple other kids decided they wanted to beat me up.
Oh.
And I don't know what happened because something clicked inside my brain. And when I came back to realizing what's going on, both of those kids were on the ground and I was standing there with a stick in my hand. And I talked to my wrestling coach at school about it. And so he said, well, you have to join the wrestling team now. And he got me into that, and with the hopes that I would learn to control my temper and, you know, become a better person through that kind of thing. And it worked. It worked really well. And I fell in love with wrestling and did that for 5 years. And in my 5th year, I won the Canadian championship in my weight class.
Wow.
Which was really cool.
Like national?
Yeah.
Wow. That's fantastic. What did it take for you to get that far, that high up?
I practiced every day for years. Like even when there weren't wrestling practices, I would still go to the gym and, you know, go through the moves in my head and sucker my friends to come in and let me throw them around, so to speak. So that's what it took. Oh.
Did you know that about yourself before you started wrestling?
I did not.
Yeah, that is something, because I find that people either have that kind of drive or they don't. And anyway, so it took that experience for you to understand that about yourself, it sounds like.
Yeah, it did. I mean, before that, you know, I always thought, even most of the way through that, I thought, oh, I'm just a bookie nerd. Nobody's, you know.
Wow. That is really quite interesting that you went all the way to win nationals in your weight class. How old were you at the time?
17, 18? I don't remember. 17, yeah. I think.
Okay. All right. And so that pivotal moment, 17. Wow. So that was still high school.
Yeah, I was still in high school. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you do wrestling past that point?
I did not. Can you hear that?
Oh yeah.
I did that in a demo match in wrestling after the season was over and I had the medals. And my wrist was out for about 5-6 months. And I never went back to wrestling. I didn't have the support at home and nobody pushing me except for me.
Yeah.
And there were some big changes in my life at that time with my mom divorcing. And
yeah. So. Wow. So that's quite something. At age 13, you found out something about yourself. You had a mentor that saw something in you, picked you up. You trained super hard, went all the way to the top. and things happen, and then so when did you find sword martial arts?
I found it in 1988. I was actually invited to go to a medieval dinner by a couple of friends, and I'm like, what the hell is this? Really skeptical. Got into a costume, went, had fun, and started talking to one of the guys there, and he got me into the SCA fighting for a little bit.
Okay.
And that was my first little taste of swordsmanship. Yeah, it was fun and difficult for a little while because with the wrestling training, I tended to close in and throw people, and you're not allowed to do that. They're like, "How do you get past the sword? How do you do that?" So,
yeah, that's interesting.
I had to break that habit.
Yeah. So how did you do that? How did that work?
Different mindset, changing it, because I'd never struck anything before. In fact, it was so into the wrestling mindset in me that there were times when guys would try to start fights with me, and I never threw a punch, but the other guy wouldn't walk away, and I would, because I'd move out of the way, and he'd do things like hit a locker and break his hand.
Yeah.
Crazy things like that. And my friends made fun of me for it. They said, "Oh, you do the weirdest fighting. All you do is dance around, and the other guy beats himself up."
Well, that's what Mayweather does.
Yeah. So
it's a winning formula.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, cool. So it was would you said 1988?
Yeah.
Yeah, 1988. Got involved in SCA.
Yeah.
Very cool. Now, is that would you consider that moment that's the original crew that you were practicing with?
No. That was in Calgary. I lived there then. And in 1990, I moved up to Edmonton.
Okay.
And joined the SCA here as well. And there were a few of us in there who we want to learn how to sword fight, like real sword fighting, not this weird stuff that the SCA does. Because obviously, it wasn't the same thing as HEMA.
Right. I mean, it's nothing against SCA. The heavies, it's basically stick fighting.
It is. It's basically stick fighting, and most of them don't have any footwork worth speaking of, because a lot of them just march up to each other and swing the sticks around until someone misses. So, so there were 7 of us in our original crew. Every one of us was part of the SCA at the time, and we kind of broke off and started practicing on our own alongside them. And what happened was we found an article in a magazine, I think it was in Black Belt magazine, I'm not sure, that showed us these 11 guards from this guy called Lichtenauer, who we'd never heard of. And it was done with stick drawings to show the guards. And what's funny about that is it's still better than some of the stuff I see today. So, but we went, "Oh, this exists." And they talked about this guy back in the Middle Ages who was teaching swordsmanship. And that was it. We were off. And we tried to get books through interlibrary loans. And we even had one that was sent over from Europe on loan for a couple months, which was really cool. Yeah.
Wow. So did you guys, so when you get a book all the way, and okay, so this is before the internet. So people who, it's when you've lived that, what you're just describing, it is so unfathomable for others who grew up internet. They don't understand what it took. So kind of, let's explain that a little bit. On loan, you checked out a book on loan from Europe through a library system. Is that correct?
Yeah, through the university library systems, because most of us were students, so we're able to do that. Just saying it's for research purposes, and which it was. It is. Yeah. And they sent it over, and we got to use it for the rest of the semester, which was only 2 months, and then it had to get sent back. So
yeah, very cool. So were you allowed to make copies of that?
We were, because it was a printing of, it was a later printing that was done in the late 1900s.
Gotcha.
I think it was printed in 1988 or something like that. So it wasn't the actual manuscript. It was a Talhofer book, but it was all in German.
Uh-huh.
And so we had to sit down and try to figure out what it meant too, because none of us spoke German at the time. I took a German class just so that I could learn a bit about that.
The true scholar. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Just the lengths that had to be done in those days to get us to where we are today. That is quite something. That is quite something. So, once you had the book, you borrowed it, you made copies, writing notes, I'm sure, trying to figure out, translate. There's no Google Translate. You got to actually learn the language. I mean, the best analog is you've got an English-German dictionary or something, and you're looking it up, and
that's exactly it. Yeah, that's what we were doing. The worst part is, because I don't know if you've ever read the Talhofer German.
No.
It's Swabian, which is an older type of German. So we're like, what the hell is this word? We can't find it in the dictionary.
Wow. So
we ended up talking to a couple of professors who were in the Germanic languages, and they were studying medieval languages, and we were getting translations from them, which was really cool.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And you're explaining this, and it is fascinating. It just hit me that this is the reason why historic fencing is so different, and it draws in academics or academically minded people, and how starkly different that is than, say, other martial arts. Not to say that there's not scholars and academics who box, of course there is, or MMA, of course there is, but how we rely heavily on the scholarship for our martial art.
Yeah, we kind of have to, eh?
Yeah, like you say. And and people are still, the work that you were doing back in those days seems quite pivotal to what we have today. It's like building blocks, and people are still trying to figure out the correct word and phrasing and all this and that. Now we have modern tools to sort of help us with that process. But here you guys were back in 1990. Yeah, doing the hard work, plowing that field for the rest of us. So thank you. Yeah. Okay. So you're pouring over this stuff. What was the weaponry like? What did you guys use for practice?
At first, we just used the SCA weapons, but they weren't adequate, so we ended up getting wooden swords made. So everything was made out of wood. That was interesting. And then I can't remember the years. Yeah, so our club was going, we were using wooden swords and boffers, because you could get foam swords. So any sparring we did at that time was just foam boffers with hockey helmets on, if we even put a helmet on at all, because foam to the face didn't really hurt that much. So
yeah, I was going to ask you that. So that's
a red welt, and that's about it,
Yeah. So when you were practicing the forms with the wooden swords, you guys had the sense not to spar with those, I guess.
Yeah, we didn't spar with those. No, we didn't want broken noses and knuckles and what have you.
So did you feel, at what point did you feel that sparring was an important component to learn?
We always wanted sparring to be part of it, but maybe that's because we came out of SCA and we wanted to be able to fight better, right?
Yeah.
So what would happen a lot of times is we'd practice all this stuff, and then we'd go over to the SCA and fight with them using this stuff, and it would piss some people off. You're like, "Oh, you guys are just the nerds over there, you you never come to practice, and then you come and walk in here and beat us. And they didn't like that. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, fight smart and hard.
Yeah. So, and there's a thing in the SCA called rhino hiding, which was a huge problem. And what that means is guys don't acknowledge the hits.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay. And one of the women in our group, she was tiny, like 5 feet tall, and she'd go into the SCA and hit people, and they would never acknowledge it. And she just
Yeah.
said, "I'm done with them. I'm never fighting them again because they won't take my hits at all."
Yeah. Oof. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. When the rules go awry.
yeah.
Today it seems like in the SCA, because I mean, I'm not in the SCA. I've seen SCA. I have friends who do SCA, and it seems like it's progressed quite a bit since 1990. I mean, to be fair, I don't want to. I don't want to
Oh, I'm sure
upset
it has. I haven't been involved in it.
anybody with that. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, there are times and places where maybe it doesn't function as it's supposed to.
Yeah.
Because SCA is really famed for acknowledging the hits, going through it, being sporty and all that stuff, self-calling. Usually it's pretty good. But yeah, it's a
I
shame
hope
that.
so. It was terrible back in the 90s. Like I gave away my whole kit back in 1998. I think it
Mhm.
was 98 or so.
Yeah.
Because I got tired of the rhino hiding. I had to knock people out for them to take my hits. So I
Yeah.
gave
Yeah.
away my kit and walked away from the SCA.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a shame. Yeah, I know it's not quite like that these days. I mean, not universally at any rate. I won't stick
Yeah, I
up for
hope
them too
not.
much because I don't do that. But yeah, I just wanted to be fair to those guys out there, because a lot of guys, they enjoy the sport, and they work hard, and they try and
Yeah.
live by the
Uh,
rules. Yeah.
yeah. We have a member in our school who used to be the local baron, and he has nothing but good things to say about the fighters nowadays.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I imagine it's changed a lot in 25 years since I was involved.
Well, yeah, and what's kind of interesting? All it takes is a few people who want to sort of game the rules as set forth, and it kind of sets a negative tone.
Yeah.
Um, so it could be one person or two people, and then all of a sudden it's three people, and then it's half the club. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's something that I think every martial art needs to watch out for. Because of, yeah. Anyway, for example, like jujitsu, you know, people who roll, the experienced guys, they roll, and they're not really putting a whole lot of stress on the joints because they've been at it for a long time. They understand. They want to do it next week. They go home. They got jobs. They're not,
Yeah.
prize fighting. It's not the MMA ring. But some of the newer guys, they get in there and they're nervous and they're trying to do things and they can't quite work it out the way that these more experienced guys can, and you know, sometimes they do some things a little harder that they're not supposed to, and it usually gets sorted out from what I'm told. But yeah, that's just yeah. So we all got our things. Um, can we shift gears real quick?
Sure.
Um, your school. When did you start that, or what was the journey for you deciding that you wanted to start your school?
Um, well, it wasn't really me at the beginning because, like I said, there was a bunch of us together. And when Teresa backed away from the SCA, we said, okay, we need to start our own group because
Okay.
this isn't working for her, and it wasn't working for a couple other people. So we started another university club. Um, that was the university club. I think started in '92, and that's hard to remember, but I think that's the year it was.
Yeah.
And we didn't even. I think we just called ourselves the Swordsmanship Group or something like that. I can't even remember the name of it. And then by '94, most of us had graduated, right? So we had to do something else, and so we ended up renting a little hall here in Edmonton called Orange Hall. It's really tiny, like probably twice the size of this kitchen.
Oh,
We
wow.
barely fit in there, and that's where we started. We didn't even come up with a name until can't remember when we came up with the name, the Academy of European Swordsmanship. I think I was in Texas then, so that was probably around 2000.
Okay.
So
Yeah. So you had this 10-year journey before the name of the school.
before the name of the school, yeah.
Yeah.
Even though the club was been around for years, we just called it the Sword Club.
Yeah. Perfect.
The Sword
Yeah.
Club, right? I mean,
Right. What more do you need?
yeah.
Yeah, very cool. The Sword Club. All right. So what did you in those days, what did you focus on? What was you mentioned Talhofer.
Yeah, we focused on, well, Talhofer has a variety of things in there. He's got a little bit of ringing. He's got some sword and buckler. He's got some longsword, and he's got some messer. And most of the book we were using, which is the 1467 one, has more longsword and more messer than anything else. So that's mostly what we did.
Yeah.
So
Sounds
plus
fun.
we had those Lichtenauer guards,
Right. Plus good old Lichtenhauer.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. And so what was it? Let me see here. I want to ask an intelligent question here. You started the school, it became the Academy of European Swordsmanship around the 2000s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
Practicing Talhofer, a little bit of Lichtenhauer. Um, how did you organize it? Like, what was the cadence? You go into practice. What could you expect to experience?
Well, we always did a warm up, even right before we were a formal club. We made sure we warmed up. We were concerned about our health, and we didn't want to be those old crickety guys who can't move, because
Yeah.
we all intended we're going to do this forever. um, so we warmed up, and then we did a little bit of calisthenics, and then we'd go through. It's pretty much the same as we do today. Then we'd go through, pick something out of the treatise, and try to figure out what it said,
Mm-hmm.
and practice that as much as we could. So we kind of had it, and then move on from there. And then we try this stuff in sparring too.
Yeah.
And that was
You
our whole
know,
practice. So
that's kind of a winning formula, honestly. I mean, I haven't heard of. I mean, everyone's got their own little twist on it, but that sounds pretty much like how you're supposed to do it. I find that that works the best. What you just described.
when we started out, I was doing an education degree. So
Okay.
everybody called me the teacher, and they kind of pushed me to the front, saying, you should teach because you're the one who has the education degree.
Right.
And they're like, come on, guys, I don't teach this. I teach English. I teach art.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, okay. So, but you got put into the forefront, and so now you're the instructor.
Yeah, I'm the only remaining original member.
Okay.
3 of them moved away to do graduate school. 1 of them died. The others moved away for work. So
Yeah, and here you are.
yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty darn cool. So as far as because even when you started in the early 2000s, it's not like the weapons got any better, really.
No,
Or did
at the time, we were using these aluminum bars that had padding all around them. So we call them sword-shaped objects. And you cover them with whatever you could so they didn't get trashed. Like sometimes we just cut up old jeans and sew them over top. Canvas, whatever. And we wore hockey helmets and hockey gloves and hockey shin pads and groin protectors, and that's what we fought in.
Yeah. Wow. So you would spar with the gear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Quite interesting. That actually doesn't sound so bad because the foam creates a nice bind.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, but there were drawbacks too. It bounces.
Yeah.
It bounces pretty bad, and it actually became a strategy at one point to, if you overswing, to use the bounce off the ground to come up quicker and hit the guy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. So as far as thrusting, how did you manage that?
Well, there's big foam like 4 inches thick on the end of it. So
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that something? All right. Cool. Um, when did you start noticing there was gear for historical fencing?
there
When
was
did that
gear
start
for it.
happening?
Oh, um, well, I moved to Texas for about 20 months, I think, in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
And I practiced at that time with a group called HACA, Historical Armed Combat Association. Now everybody's heard of John Clements.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was him. And I knew Natasha and Darcy, who run Purple Heart Armories.
Mm-hmm.
And Natasha Darcy, and Jesus, now I can't remember his name, her husband. Anyhow,
Yeah. I don't know.
he was making wooden swords. And I was like, oh, this is cool. These are better than the
Oh,
ones we make.
yeah. Woodenswords.com. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So
Okay.
got a bunch of his stuff and told the guys up in Edmonton to get some of his stuff, and they did. And yeah, that's where it started. It was right there. It's like, we don't have to make all our own anymore. These guys are making stuff here. That's way better. So
Yeah. That's cool. All right. Okay. Yeah. I like that storefront. I like that website, by the way. A lot of my gear comes from there. Still.
yeah, Christian and Natasha. Oh, I remember his name.
Yeah. Christian and Natasha. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very cool. Um, all right. So is then that they started doing the wooden swords. What about the protective gear? When did that
Uh,
start?
like I said, we still used when I moved back to Edmonton. Um, I moved back in August of 2000. Or no, sorry, 2001.
Mm-hmm.
And shockingly, I expected, there'd be 2 or 3 people there, ready to reactivate and get our club going. There were 14 guys waiting for me, guys and
Oh
gals.
wow.
So
Wow.
it's like,
That's
yeah, you're
cool.
back. We can do this big now. So
Super cool. Yeah. And at that point, you guys were still using hockey gear?
yeah, we were still using hockey gear. We still used hockey gear for a number of years after that.
Yeah.
Um,
We still use
Hockey and
lacrosse
rugby
gloves.
and football gear. So we also made our own armor.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
um, some of us had full steel kit that we made ourselves.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah,
That's something. That's
and
pretty cool.
that was different. In those ones, we were actually sparring with aluminum swords.
Okay.
So all of our swords were made of aluminum, except for the pommels and crossguards, which were steel.
Mm-hmm.
And the edges on them were probably about 6 or 7 millimeters thick.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
but you couldn't really thrust with them because aluminum doesn't have any flex, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I was gonna ask you about that. Um, so when did you first discover the springy steel fetters?
I don't remember exactly. It's so long. That's hard.
But that's
I do
kind of a
remember
later
that.
development.
I think it was. I went to because we were also using steel practice swords, and I went to a Western martial arts workshop. I think it was the first or second one, which is in Wisconsin, and someone there had a fader, and I was just like, "What is this thing?" And that was it. We had
Yeah.
a whole bunch of them within a couple months. So,
Yeah, they really are quite something. I mean, I came around 2012. So they already had fetters around, I believe.
yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, and yes, they did. I'm not sure how long they've had them in Europe, but it kind of seemed like it came to North America. Everything comes to North America a little bit later. It
Yeah.
seems like for our sport. And yeah, so I had the pleasure of just picking one of those up when the time came for me to have steel. Um, but yeah, they are pretty cool, aren't they?
They were, yeah. Well, we were just like, this is the bomb, right?
Yeah.
The
So how did
pentultimate
that?
of practice weapons.
Yeah. And so what changed? Like when you picked those up, how did that change the way that you worked practice?
We were finally able to thrust safely, and we started learning a whole lot more. Um, and then we were able to do proper winding and binding and ending with thrust, because before we were too worried about hitting people in the face with those aluminum swords and
Yeah.
hurting someone.
Yeah. So when was it that you guys started making the switch to the fencing masks?
Uh, how old is my son? He's 18. So probably about 15 or 16 years ago.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. And that's kind of like when the fetters came around.
It is, yeah. It's about the same time the faders started coming around.
Yeah. Yeah. Very interesting. So then once you're armed with the basically the weapons that we use today, and then going back to the sources, the source material, what was the most surprising thing that you learned?
I, hmm.
Or a surprising thing. It doesn't have to be the most surprising thing.
I think the thing that surprised us most was how useful thrusts were. Because, like I said, before then we'd been avoiding them because we didn't want to get injuries. We didn't want anyone
Yeah.
hurt. And then it's just like, it was just a whole new world of possibilities opened up. How to bind, how not, and then we didn't have to worry about hitting people. Even if I'm trying to wind and hit someone on the side of the head and the distance is off and I accidentally thrust them to the face, it's like, it doesn't matter. It still worked.
It works good.
Yeah. And at that point, we either did it work? Yeah, it's Western martial arts. Good.
Nice.
We weren't calling it HEMA yet. It was still being called Western martial arts back then. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Which is, I'm not sure. I mean, the switch really is semantics, I guess. I'm not sure why HEMA would be a more superior name per se, but yeah, it works. It's kind of funny how language shift. It's really funny how that works.
Yeah, it is. I think part of why it is because the word historical is in there. And Western martial arts is more encompassing. It can mean like modern barjitsu, even native martial arts here in Canada, because there is a group in Ottawa, or not Ottawa. Anyhow, in Ganawagi, I think that does that. So the Mohawks over there, they're doing some of their own traditional martial arts.
That's fascinating. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to understand some of that, how that works. That's that's pretty cool. And
I understand there's a large wrestling component in it, which is really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I've talked to one of them before, and they classify it as Western martial arts because it's everywhere in Europe, all the way across North America. But they also call it native martial arts.
Yeah. Really cool. And I'm wondering, just out loud, because correct me if I'm wrong, but lacrosse is basically taken heavily from a Native American sport.
It is. It originated with them. They were playing it before the white man came over.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And then the French called it lacrosse, but it was something else before that. And the rules have since changed, but
yeah.
I think it used to be more brutal.
Oh yeah. Yeah. They used to be allowed to hit people across the head with those sticks and knock them out. And supposedly there were lots of injuries.
Defend yourself and when throw the ball, whatever. What did they used to use for the ball?
It's a wooden ball about the size of your fist.
Yeah. Okay.
Solid hardwood.
Yeah. Well, it just kind of seems like maybe the Native American version, or I should just say the native version of like maybe the Olympics, where you're not explicitly killing each other, you've sportified it, and maybe it's a conflict resolution. Wow, you used to have to do sparring and stuff, and throw the. We need to go back. We need to go back to the old way with the gear on. I'm getting very interested in the sport now.
Yeah.
Yeah, sportified martial arts are really fun.
Yeah.
We're in a total digression. Forgive me.
That's okay.
In our practice in our club, we gamify a lot of things. So we'll play multiples. We'll put things that you got to hit. King of the Hill. It's like you can
Yeah. Yeah.
defeat the king or defeat his. If you could smack his throne behind him, then you're the new king. Stuff like that. So we put different elements so that you have to think strategically. It's not just kill, kill, kill.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah.
it unlocks this really fun potential, like 3-on-3, 5-on-5, capture the flag, but it's martial, all that kind of thing.
Yeah. We do that too. We actually even have a sparring safe two-hander that was, yeah. So what we'll do is we'll say, okay, how many guys can the guy with a two-hander take on? And we'll get, I think the most he's been able to beat is 5 people.
Wow.
So, and
Yeah,
he's
that's
even then you say, you gotta hold back a little bit with the swihender because if you swing too hard, you can really hurt someone, right?
yeah,
So,
yeah. Oh, right. Yeah, definitely.
and
Well,
then we
that's
will say,
cool.
oh,
So,
how does shields change it? And so we'll give 3 or 4 people shields and say, okay, now go against the swihender. And he says, and it's a completely different game then, right?
yeah. So how do you make it sparring safe? Do you just throw like a foamy over the top of it, or what do you
Oh
do?
no, it was made by SGT Blades, a
Okay.
guy in Airdrie here in Alberta, and it's lighter than what a historical swihender would be.
Okay.
But it's got enough flex, and because it's lighter, you can hit with it. You just can't do like your full strength hits.
It's like a longer spadone or something.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
um, yeah. It's really cool to fight with. But like I said, we only let the senior students use it because they've demonstrated that they have enough control that they won't over slam someone with it, and it's
Yeah.
thrusting safe. It'll bend like almost 180 degrees. So
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's really cool. Who makes that?
his name's Garth Thompson, SGT Blades.
SGT Blades. I'm gonna put
Yeah,
that in the show notes.
yeah.
STG Blades. Yeah, remind me.
SGT, like Sergeant Blades.
That's cool. Oh, nice. Yeah, we'll get that in there because I think a lot of people would be interested in a two-hander that you could get a little rougher with. I
Yeah.
think that'd be
Well, it's
yeah
special order, right? So I don't know how
yeah.
long his wait list is.
Well, if you want one, get in line.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. I mean, that's just how our sport goes,
Yeah.
man. Yeah. Cool. All right. So, gosh, where were we before we got into that whole digression? We were talking about your school, what to expect, how weapons have changed. Oh, the thing that you learned from. That's right, and how effective the thrust is. Yes, that's
Yeah.
right. Okay, so let's. How about your school? How you operate it now, as far as interpersonal. You say you've got a motto, you've got a certain culture, and you've got your curriculum. Can you explain how that works a little bit?
Well, our motto is to lead, teach, inspire. So, well, or teach, lead, inspire. Sorry. So the first thing is teaching. We want to learn everything possible about our martial arts. So we teach wrestling, we teach knife, we teach longsword, arming sword, saber, staff. We even do some pole arms and try to throw it all together, like the whole gamut. But I mean, with over 30 years of experience, of course, I played with everything at some point. And so now we've got our curriculum at the basic level is all the same. So
Yeah.
everybody has to learn the same basic stuff. And then they split out into whatever weapons they want to study the most. So we've got, like Sheena, she really wants to do rapier. So she's taking some stuff there and doing some research and trying to make that up to a nice high level. And Remy, he does that too. He's a rapier instructor. He's very good at it. Me,
Yeah.
I'm crap with rapier. These two will walk all over me when they're picking one up. So, but if you want to learn knife, then I'll say go talk to Dave. He's our knife guy because that's the one thing he's really good at, and he's gotten at it. And he's been doing it for 15 years. So where so each person goes up, and then we get the students who can follow the different instructors that way as well, which is nice. And of course, our school is governed by a little board. That's because we are a nonprofit. So there's me, there's Sheena, there's Natasha, there's Dave, and Eric. So that's our board members, right? And so anything changes to curriculum stuff, they go through that, and we go, okay, yeah, this will be good. We'll do this, and then we also figure out events and stuff together. So it's not just one person doing it. It's not just me. I couldn't do it without all these other people.
Right. Yeah, that's nice to have backup.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very cool. So, how often do you guys meet up?
We have 4 practices a week.
Okay. Yeah. So there's plenty of time to get something in there. So do you take turns on what the subject matter is?
I teach 2 of the classes. So I pretty much decide what's going to be going on there on those 2. A lot of times I'll say, hey, what do you guys want to learn next week? What are we going to cover? And if it's, oh, well, let's do some rapier or single sword, I might say, okay, I'll get one of the junior instructors or other people to do this class, because of course they need experience doing that. And so I'll help them make a lesson plan, and then they go and they do it. Otherwise, I'll teach it myself with the 150,000 lesson plans I have. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The Saturday class, Zach is one of our other instructors. He teaches that all the time, and he mostly teaches longsword and side sword. So
okay,
you really want side sword, I say go talk to Zach. He's better at it than I am. And attend the Saturday class if you can.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas our Sunday practice, that's just strictly a sparring practice. So people go in there to spar with whatever they want, and then of course I coach as needed, and so does Sheena. So
cool. Yeah, I like it. I like that setup. That's really nice.
Thanks.
What else makes your club stand out to you? What are you proud of as far as what you've accomplished at your club?
Well, I'm proud of that we have this huge curriculum, which is probably bigger than anyone's I know of.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also proud that we are the largest school in Alberta. We have over 20 people regularly attending classes. We have twice that number of members, but people, oh, I can't make it tonight. Oh, I can't make it to that practice. So
Yeah.
So they don't all come to the same practice all the time, right?
Right.
And we have the most diverse school. Like we have our youngest student is 14. Our oldest is in his 60s. We have this one gaggle of teenage girls that like to hang out and stab each other with the knives, that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, that's cool. That's great, and it's quite an accomplishment. And I think, well, I don't want to put words in your mouth, so I'll ask you, how do you get people to feel comfortable coming in? Like, how have you cultivated this?
Part of it has to do with the other students. I mean, they're a huge part of it. I mean, I cannot take all the credit. Sheena, Natasha, Nick, those 3 people, they're our student liaisons, and they're the ones who really welcome everybody in, because a few years back, we felt that me as the instructor, it sometimes intimidates new people, right? Oh, we got to talk to the instructor. Ooh, he's a big teacher. Yeah, you can talk to me. I don't care. But especially with the younger ones, like the girls, because like I said, we got a few teenage girls in our class. So Natasha or Sheena will go talk to them because they don't seem as intimidating. They look like they're the regular students, and they're female, which helps with kids that age, right?
Yeah.
Where if it's a younger guy, Nick will go talk to him. That tends to make them feel more at ease too. Or Eric. Eric's one of our junior instructors. and he's only like 20 years old too, so that helps, right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's been doing it since he was 13 or 14. He
Oh,
joined our
yeah.
club.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. So, if anyone is in Edmonton, it's in Edmonton, right?
yeah, Edmonton, Alberta.
Okay. Yeah, look up the Academy of European Swordsmanship, swordsmanship.ca.
Thanks.
Uh, yeah, no, but it's important. Like, it's important that people just kind of understand what's there. So you either like it or you don't.
Yeah,
It just I find that if people are interested in the swords, it just calls to them in their mind, and then they just go to the club. And they if they feel comfortable enough, if they feel like that's their tribe, if they feel like there's something that they can learn there and participate and even give back to, then they
yeah.
stick around. And yeah,
There are
that's
different clubs in Edmonton. Um, like Jack's club. Jack's one of my former students, and he runs a school here in Edmonton. And they're all about the tough guys. And
yeah.
they used to call themselves the Shiner faction because they were so proud of their bruises, though they shine. You know.
Shiner. Yeah.
And so I've had a couple guys come into my school, and they wanted that more tough attitude, and I just direct them over to Jack's and go there. That'll fit you better, and they love
Right.
it. They've done that, and
Yeah.
one of them even come back and says, "You're my first coach. I respect you so much." Blah blah blah. Any advice you have for me, like at the tournament? He says, "Can you give me some tips?" I was like, "I was too busy coaching my guys. I'll have to watch you later." So it tells me that he still looks at
Yeah.
me as his coach, even though he's with another school.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, being rough. Look, sometimes I like to be rough too, but
Yeah,
it has to be with the right people, and it's not all the time. Sometimes I just
yeah,
don't want to do that. And I'm sure it's for you too. Um,
yeah,
uh, Going rough as opposed to learning technique. I mean, it's not always the case, but I find that a lot of people who want to go rough, it's because they're trying to cover up the fact that they either don't want to take the time to learn the technique. Well, they don't want to take the time to learn the technique because I think everyone can learn the technique.
yeah.
That's kind of what I find. Someone who doesn't have the patience for that, so they just go hard all the time. Um, yeah, so I encourage people
Different
who,
cultures, right?
yeah, if you're getting that rut, I would encourage people to take the because I'm 6'2", I weigh 250 pounds. I'm kind of a big guy, but
Yeah,
for me, I'm not interested in overpowering people because it's not hard for me to do that to a lot of people. Some people obviously would just, throw me on the floor in a puddle, but but as a big guy, it's like the challenge is learn the technique and be good and strong with the technique. Like that's what I
yeah,
want.
yeah,
Personal, that's my personal journey. And so I would encourage people who just want to go hard to look at perhaps incorporating more technique.
yeah. They get much better if they've got the technique and the size.
Yeah. So that's my soapbox. I'm not the world's best fencer at all, but that's my journey.
I don't think there is any one world's best fencer. You know.
Yeah. 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 I'm just a guy. Um,
Likewise.
yeah, with a lot of experience, so that's good. Uh, yeah. Okay. So we got the elephant in the room, which is operating a sword school during the pandemic. So yeah, getting through that
Yeah.
pandemic. How in the world did you do that?
Well, here wintertime we just didn't have classes. And when it's minus 30 outside, you can't practice outside. It's too cold.
Yeah.
When the weather was nice, we just practiced outside in the field. So during the rest of the months, I used my own personal money to keep the school going because we still had to pay our insurance
Mm-hmm.
and other sundry expenses. So that's how I kept it going. And
Wow.
part of that was I thought, okay, we're going to have to bring more money in because I can't do this myself. So I took a loan, me personally, took a loan and started a thing called Sword Gear, where I was selling gear and swords, and made it part of our school so that all the funds go into the school from that. Any profits that come in, profits per se,
Right.
go to support the school. So
Yeah. Yeah. There you
and
go.
that helped a lot.
And this is where the HEMA Arms dealing comes in.
Yep. So it's like, yeah, I can't afford to do this myself. And if I take a loan from the bank, you got to pay it back somehow, right? So,
Yeah.
and I didn't want to just do that because I knew that if we just had simple attendance, it would take 10 years to get enough money to pay back the loan that kept us going through those 2 years of the pandemic. So I used the money from the loan to buy some inventory and started selling it. And that, that's paid back the loan. And now we're starting to get a little bit into the school from it too. And it kept us going through the pandemic. Just enough cash flow to cover everything.
Yeah, that's good. That is really good. So, and you may find this. I know it's true in the States somewhat. The gear that's available, especially the swords, everyone's a sucker for them shiny swords. Suckers for those shiny swords. But when you have something available, right? How quickly does that turn over?
It depends on what it is. Like if it's something new and shiny that's been advertised a lot by the maker, they go really quickly. But if it's an expensive sword like a two-hander, I can hold on to that for months before somebody buys it.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I bought this one sword for inventory from Kvetun. It's their brass-fitted long Fiore longsword. It's absolutely beautiful sword. Like feels incredible in the hands, but it's expensive. So I've had it for 3 or 4 months now, and I don't know if I'll ever sell it because people just don't want to spend the money on that.
Right.
So,
wow, brass fittings.
Yeah, it's just gorgeous. It's a gorgeous sword, but expensive. So it tends to sit there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas their sabers, they just fly out the door. I can't keep them in stock.
The sabers do fly off the. Yeah. I got my Kvetun right there. I love that saber. It's so amazing. I enjoy it a lot. It's a good sword maker, but it's hard to get them in the States.
Really?
Well, you go through. So there is an address, right? There's a gentleman who imports them in.
Yeah.
I don't think I pay him any extra. It's just they have this thing. So I have to order it through this gentleman, and they fill the order, and it comes through. I think they're in Florida somewhere, and then we get them. So I don't know what the process is in Canada, but it seems like there are some domestic sword makers, but I don't know. It just seems rather difficult to get personal protection and swords. Harder, I should say. It's not hard. It's harder. You throw in the cash and then you got to wait because what you wanted just isn't available at the moment. So it's everything practically is a waiting game.
Yeah,
in the States.
So that's part of why I'm trying to build up an inventory so that people don't have to wait. So, I'm trying to anticipate what the sales are. Oh, I need 10 of these jackets and 5 of those and whatever, because I'm.
Yeah, and it is such a it is. I mean, if someone has the gear ready to go, I'd imagine if it's something that people are thinking about, that it would go pretty darn quick.
Yeah, like I just did a big order of fencing masks, and just the basic masks. So starting level, and I thought these are going to sit for months like they did last time. Well, school came and bought half my inventory just like that. I was just like, oh, geez, okay, put another order in right now before they're all gone.
Yeah, just like that. Yeah, and so sabers go fast. What else goes fast?
Arm protection, really. That surprises me.
Arm protection.
Arm protectors go faster than any other protective gear.
Like below the elbow or above the elbow?
Elbows down.
Elbows down, yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Also carrying the HF Armory gloves, and those are going fast enough that people are reserving them for my orders. They have to, because I can't get them in time, and HF Armory is taking, because they're basically at capacity.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we can't keep up with those. And I'm starting to carry the Gabrielle gloves as well, and those are being reserved.
Are
And
you
the Cobra
really?
masks.
Now, I am very interested in those Gabrielle gloves. I mean, the first set was really expensive, but I saw the first design. I really liked them. I just couldn't part with the money yet. And then, so the 2.0s actually look really interesting. You've seen them? You have them?
I've only seen them on film, like
Okay.
people going, "Oh, this is what it looks like," that kind of thing. I
But
haven't
you're
had one
reserving
in
them.
my grubby little hands yet.
Well, they
And it,
seemed too expensive the first time around. I thought, I don't know for that
yeah,
price.
because I think I'm retailing them for 4.99
Yeah, they're
Canadian.
kind of spendy.
So what is that in American? 300 or something around
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Um,
It's not too bad, I guess.
and
But
it's the
yeah.
2.0.x, so it's just the next version beyond the 2.0 that you've seen.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So it's an even different variant.
Yeah, it's improved over those
The improved
slightly.
2.0. Well, I'm glad that people are buying enough of them to where they're really still tinkering with them and supporting them and improving them, because that's a really cool glove design. I really like that gauntlet thing, but they're not so bulky.
Yeah. Um, Julian, shoots it. He's one of the guys in Vancouver. He's got both the Pro Gauntlet and those, and he's telling me, he says they're probably as good as the Pro Gauntlet, but less maintenance.
Yeah, which is what you want. Yeah, it's like the Pro Gauntlet. It's this over-engineered wonder glove, uh, kind of like World War II version German tank. It's just built to these ridiculous specs that are amazing, but then it kind of breaks down, and you got to fix
Yeah,
it. Like a Formula One race car, right? It just
yeah,
performs beautifully, but you got to have that pit crew to keep it on the road. So if you're into that, maybe that's for you. But I'm
yeah.
looking for something a little lower maintenance.
Yeah, one of my students has a Pro Gauntlet. He says, I only use it now for side sword and messer because it's so high maintenance. I'll just use mitten gauntlets for my long sword.
Yeah, and for me, because I my favorite is saber.
Yeah,
I've almost given up on the whole one glove for both. Um,
I have.
have you? Yeah.
Yeah, I've completely given up on a universal glove.
Yeah, and currently I don't have a universal glove. I use one type of glove for this and one type of glove for my longsword, but I don't like my gloves for longsword. I've decided it's too restrictive on my wrists. I modded a pair of the sparring glove. It's the kind
Yeah,
that goes all the way to here, and then but it didn't go all the way to my elbow. So I put a thing of armor around it, almost to my elbow, and then it's got that wrist thing, which I'm not. I'm just really hoping I don't take one to the wrist really hard, because it's just that thin plastic,
yeah,
you know, thing there. But the hand part, I modded out pretty nice. So I have wrist mobility, but it kind of seems like there's drag, and then I can't put my wrists together because it's too bulky in some places. So I can understand why the below the elbow armor keeps flying off the shelf for you, because I'm not really satisfied with what I've got, and I've done several different configurations. I'm still not happy.
yeah, yeah.
I need something protective, low profile. And I think that's what everyone's after, that magic non-existent thing.
Yeah, and we don't use steel in HEMA anymore, so that's another issue, right? Because
Right.
I
Well, it's
have a
heavy.
fantastic glove design, but it's a steel hybrid. It's steel and modern fabrics hybrid, and you can't use it in HEMA.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes you can't,
Yeah,
because of restrictions, right?
yeah, because some tournaments just say no steel.
Just say no steel.
Yeah,
And then it's also very protective but quite heavy, so it slows you down and wears you out faster. So there is that.
yeah,
But
there is that possibility. That's
yeah,
why the one I made for myself is a hybrid. So,
nice. You've got all the steel covered up.
so yeah,
Nice.
but you can't use it in tournaments because they say no steel. So
Yeah. Well, what if there was a thin thing of steel surrounded by foam?
I don't know. Maybe. I
Yeah,
didn't think of
because
that. That would make it
yeah,
bulkier, though, right?
a
So,
little bit, but you don't need a whole lot of foam. Just a little
yeah.
teeny, like 16th of an inch or something
There you
over
go.
the top. Hey man, it's foam. What are you talking about?
Yeah, yeah. Just,
it
look,
does.
it's foam.
It doesn't clink. It's yeah. Yeah. No, I didn't say that. I did not say
We do have
that.
one of my students see in class because he's got freaky large hands, so he can't fit any of the gloves on the market.
Gotcha.
So
So
he
what
had
does
to
he do?
make himself a pair of steel, and he covered them with suede so that they don't clink and what have you.
Oh yeah, that's pretty cool. I do have a pair of Visby gauntlets,
Yeah.
and I do like them, except the leather that they're so the plates are riveted to the leather, and I popped a couple of them, and
Oh,
once I didn't realize that I had, and I just did a quick gear check, and I right there that
oh,
rivet
geez.
had popped off, and the plate slid down, and it's still some padding there, but not the steel plate. I mean, the steel plate is everything. So I caught it before I started fighting, and I thought, oh man, this could really just happen all the time. So I retired them from my sparring, but they were so awesome when
Oof.
I was using them. They're heavy, they're dexterous, but if you don't do a gear check on them, you
Yeah.
could be in for a bad surprise.
You gotta find someone who knows how to work armor and can repair that for you.
Yeah. Well, it's just in all of them, the way the rivets are. The material is like a suede material. It's not it, it's the leather part that just kind of pops.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. No,
I
I've
don't
made
think that
armor. I know.
yeah, and the rivet heads aren't big enough, I don't think. So all of the rivets on the gloves, I would want them bigger,
Yeah.
and I'm like, man, that's such a big project. In a street fight, I definitely would put those on and go for it. Like if my life depended on it. But for your everyday practice and sparring
Yeah.
and this and that, it's just isn't that funny? I just don't think that they're for me.
Yeah.
But if there was an intruder in the door, oh, I'd put those things on. Let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, uh, back to your arms dealing. Do you have many U.S. customers?
I have a few. Probably about 30% of my customers are in the States.
Okay, cool. And
And
so how does
there's
yeah, go ahead.
some guys in the Midwest who say they don't want to buy from anybody else. They want to buy from me as much as they can
Hmm.
because they they told me that it's cheaper because I'm still close to them.
Mm.
Even though I'm shipping from Canada, and they say the shipping's cheaper than buying from Florida or whoever's way down there. They
Isn't
were
that
buying from
something?
before, and yeah, so they say it all works out that it's slightly cheaper, and they like my customer service.
Sure.
So
Well, there you go. Good customer service. The shipping thing surprises me. I think they just liked your customer service.
maybe,
Yeah, because there is like an import tax or something like that. I don't know. Maybe the rules have changed,
yeah, they've
but
never told me anything about duties, so I don't know.
okay. Well, maybe not because I have shipped because I've made shields before and I have shipped them to Canada.
Yeah,
And it's a little more expensive for the shipping. Well, okay, it's twice as expensive as shipping to the U.S. But if you do it in bulk, it's not. Yeah. So I have done that before. So yeah, it can be done. Um, yeah, very cool, very cool. Well, I'm a little interested in those Gabrielle gloves. So just keep me posted when you get some, because
for sure.
yeah, if the
Well,
timing's right, I might pick up a pair. Yeah, because I really am looking for something better for longsword. I'm not sure they'll fit in my saber guard.
yeah, well, I'll try them out when we get a pair here, because Nick has one of those swords that he uses in class. So
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Nice. Y- yeah. Well, what do you think? How bulky are they?
the Gabrielles,
Yeah.
they look good. I was told that someone fit them in the Cavetton Easton with the standard guard on it.
Oh, really?
So if it fits in there, it might fit in that one because that guard is a little bit larger than the one on your wall. So
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. Now that is interesting. Kind of overkill for that saber type, but yeah. Well, that's promising. That's really
we'll
promising
see.
for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. Well, gosh, this is not an infomercial for Gabrielle gloves. It's just, well, because back in the day, well, like I mentioned, I bought a pair of used 5-finger gloves from Sparring Glove, and then I turned them into like pig hooves. I bought them used and just went to work, I got excited when I saw the 1.0 Gabrielle glove because I was trying to build a glove for myself from scratch.
Yeah.
And I realized I just didn't have the tooling. And by the time I got into the tooling and all that, it's like, I might as well just buy some gloves because I'm not making these for everyone else. I'm just making some for me. So I gave up on the idea of making myself a 5-fingered glove out of plastic. It was just too much. But everything I wanted to accomplish, straight away, I looked at the Gabrielle gloves and I thought, that's exactly what I wanted to do. That right there. And I had run tests and stuff, and I knew that it would work in the construction, everything. And I just, like a geek, I poured over all the pictures where the rivets were, how they did this and that. And I thought, oh man, that's just a thing of beauty. In the 2.0s, I think they simplified it so it's easier to make. But all the what I was looking for was all still there. So that's just my take on it. I have no experience with them. I think I've seen one person with them and they kind of liked them. But anyway, I just kind of wanted to get your opinion. Yeah.
Well, I test out everything that I sell before I decide I'm going to carry this product 100%, or someone I know tests it out. So the reason I decided on the Gabrielles is because the guys in Vancouver said they're really good.
Yeah.
Okay, if you guys are saying it's good, because I know you hit hard, you fight intensely.
Yeah.
I want to carry these. So
yeah.
And I can't wait to get my pair to see what they're like. But the Thok gloves is something else I carried, and there's I would tell them, never ever wear these for longsword. Never.
Yeah.
Even modding them, you can't make them safe for longsword, but we use them for saber and messer all the time. So, but with messer, we've modded it so that there's an overlay on the thumb that covers the thumb tip.
Yeah.
And then it's fine. But without that, I wouldn't use it for messer either.
Yeah. So. Yeah. So you've kind of cased the thumb tip a little bit.
We've actually built a plastic cap that goes over top.
Okay.
And then it comes like an overlay that goes right over the thumb down to here. It attaches to the Thok overlay.
Gotcha.
That comes with it, or that you can buy.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, cool. All right. Well, what did we miss?
Oh God. Probably lots.
Yeah. But is there something that you wanted to express today? Maybe about your club, about oh, yes, there is something else. Moving forward, where do you see selling HEMA gear, and where do you see your school? And say like the next 10 years, where's that going?
The next 10 years? I hope that I'll be selling HEMA gear full time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a tax accountant right now, and honestly, it's killing my health. Sitting at a desk for 12 hours a day during tax season. I blew out my knee last week, and I think a big reason I did that was because I'd spent so much time in the desk that my knee wasn't even used to regular light sparring and walking. So, I blew it out stupidly. We finished sparring, and I just stepped away, and then it went. So I wasn't even actually sparring. I was just walking away from, we're done practice today.
Yeah. Oh, that's awful. I'm sorry to hear that. That's the worst.
Yeah, it's a nuisance more than anything. You know, I got good drugs, so that helps a lot. As far as our school goes, 10 years from now, I expect that people like Nick and Sheena and maybe Eric, they'll be running it. I mean, I'm 56 years old. I'll be in my mid to late 60s in 10 years. I'll certainly be there as a coach when they need me, but I hope they're running the school.
Very good. Very good. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Johannes Haidner. You're quite welcome. Listen, I want to express my heartfelt appreciation for you coming on the show and talking to us a little bit about what it is that you do. And good luck with the knee. That is just such a bum deal. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah. But brighter futures ahead. And hopefully things work out for you. For everybody who stuck with us this long, thank you much for listening. And always remember to slay your demons. And we will catch you on the next one. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.